Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to present to you practical techniques for handwriting skills from the Houston Independent School District. Our presenters will be Eric Leon, Erica Gramillion-Neal, Norma Rocha, Rebecca Allen, and Christine Toledo. Writing is a critical skill of any job market. It requires integration of multiple cognitive, linguistic, and motor abilities. Students with difficulty with basic handwriting skills presents issues with composition and self-expression later. For these students, difficulty with handwriting will also predict difficulty with reading. There's common terms and definitions that we may want to be familiar with: handwriting, fluency, legibility, writing, and the writing process. There are writing expectations from preschool to high school. During pre-K and K, mechanics of writing, pencil grip, paper placement, letter forms, words, and sentence formation are emphasized. After learning to write their name, the focus of handwriting shifts from production of letters to production of words, sentences, and paragraphs.
Thank you, Christine. That was a good introduction. As Christine said, we're all here again showing you some tips for handwriting. So we're gonna get started with some of the practical things to consider for handwriting. So one of the big things about writing is that it doesn't even start with a pencil. It can start with posture. So make sure that your child is sitting in a chair that allows him or her to reach the floor with their feet. And then also to have their elbows, as you can see from the photo, on the table so that they can actually perform writing. So always make sure that posture is an important piece to consider. Make sure that the points that you remember are hips, knees, and feet, okay? We'll go on to the next slide. So another thing to consider is also, again, besides just pencil and paper, go to the environment and see what kind of things are affecting my child that are maybe preventing him or her from being the best that they can for writing. So one of the main things that we sometimes hear as occupational therapists is, my child can't write. One of the things to consider is age. So if your child is 3, sometimes even 4, and they're still, not writing their name fully, that's okay. Developmentally, they're still within that age range. Now, if your child is a lot older, then maybe, we can start giving you some better, some other suggestions. But if they're 3 or 4, remember that writing expectations are minimal. Also for disability, if the child has an orthopedic impairment, then we may need to start thinking about not the typical traditional pencil and paper, but maybe some other ways. And then one last thing is the time of the day. So for example, just as, us as adults, are you a morning person or a night person? Same thing with kids, it may be that the child can write better in the morning when they just wake up and they're fresh, or it could be that they write a lot better in the afternoon after they take a nap, or after they've had something to eat. So we'll go on to the next slide. For this one, also reduce distractions in the environment, and also a big thing is reduce noise levels. So if there's a lot of noise, just think about yourself. If you're at work and there's just so much noise going on, maybe someone's cooking now, like in the kitchen. If you're working at home now, someone's cooking in the kitchen. That's going to affect the way that you produce your writing. Or typing or anything like that. The same thing with kids. Remember that noise level is something to consider. We'll go on to the next slide. And this one, I believe, Becky, who is this one?
Erica, but I can go ahead and go with this.
All right.
There are many types of and heights of chairs. We're looking at the physical environment. So it's real important to ensure that your child's feet touch the floor when they're seated in a chair. If you've ever sat in a chair without your feet being able to touch the floor, it makes you feel kind of unstable. So you want to give your child the best possible stability for writing. Some people, if they don't have the chair that actually fits the child, will put anything from a step stool or a large book underneath their feet so that they can feel the floor, and it gives them postural stability. The other thing you can think about in terms of a physical environment for writing, and we'll touch on this more later, but you can consider taping a calendar or a paper on the wall and writing from that perspective. So writing like that. Okay, so the next slide is going to be more physical strategies. This one is the pencil grasp skills. So strategies that help foster a mature grip are things like very small pencils, so that the child doesn't have the ability or the tendency to try and hold the whole pencil. If it's long, they may try to grab it like this. If it's short, they tend to accommodate that and just hold it there. Small crayons and markers. So even if you have a big crayons or big chalk, go ahead and break it and write like that. Have them write like that. Again, we talked about the vertical surface, anything on the wall, and the possibility of a child laying on their stomach. Some children really enjoy laying on their stomach. They feel comfortable, and that's just fine. Let them lay on their stomach if they're comfortable. So that was slide 11, and the next one's going to be Norma and Erica. Norma and Eric.
Thank you, Becky. So for this one, it's going to be on materials. And one of the neat things that Houston ISD was able to do before for this school year was to adopt the Handwriting Without Tears curriculum. We'll give you some resources at the end of the presentation so that you can review that and possibly access that. But that's going to be an important thing for their child to learn how to write, learn how to make his or her letters, to have an actual handwriting curriculum that is now available through Houston ISD. The next thing will be about mechanical pencils. So one of the things that we were thinking about was that sometimes a child may be, and this looks like a regular pencil, but it's actually a mechanical pencil. As you can see, I need to move this way to take out some of the lead. So for example, this is something that if a child is pressing maybe too hard on a piece of paper, or maybe just needs a little bit more of just like less of a pressure when they're writing, then because it's a mechanical pencil, this little lead will break if they're writing too hard. But if they're writing soft, then it's going to give them a better idea of how much pressure to put on the paper. So that's one idea that you can, that's a practical idea that you can remember. Mechanical pencils can help.
And the other idea would be using a whiteboard to, that you could have the child write their name, and it gives them less resistance to trace and write letters. So if I want the child to write the name Cindy, I'm just writing it down, but I'm using very less resistance. Can you see? And then also with the chalkboard, it's the same way, but it's giving the child more resistance. So let's try writing Cindy again. So they can go from top to bottom. And it gives them more resistance on their hand and on their wrist.
That was a great idea, Norma. I think for the next one, we're gonna have the raised line paper. And I think, Becky, that's the one that you were gonna do with the glue.
Right. They sell raised line paper that you can buy, but you can also do it yourself by taking any line paper and just simply running a line of glue across the line that is already there. Then you let it dry. And what this helps a child do is have a multisensory approach to knowing where that baseline is. Sometimes our kids will go below the baseline and that reduces legibility. So having that little extra input sometimes helps them.
And also, Becky was talking about the raised line paper that you can buy. Here's a sample of the raised line paper. It's hard to tell, but it does have a little bump. It's the green line, and it's a little bump. If you run your finger along it, you can feel a little bump, and it also gives the student or your child indication of where to stop when they're writing.
And I think also, Erica, you were gonna show them the highlighting paper that
Yes,
they can use.
I definitely have some highlighted paper. The highlighted paper is used as a visual to keep your child on the line. And this is store-bought paper. And as you can see, get really close, you might see a double line. The top line is not highlighted and the bottom line is highlighted, and that's where they would write their sentences or their letters.
Perfect. And you know what, also, in case you don't have one, I'm sure you have a highlighter line around yellow or orange or red. You can also do the same thing on just line paper and just highlight each line to create the same effect. So going on with the same type of information or just different strategies, one of the things you can do is called a vertical line blocking. And if I get this close enough here, you may be able to see it. Basically, you're writing lines down like this. So you may be thinking, well, what is that going to do with, how is that going to help my child? So if your child writes his or her name, in this case, I wrote my name, this is going to create a natural separation for spacing. So if you guys can see that, let me just move it this way. Now that spacing or that line is going to create a natural spacing for them to skip natural space between the words so that they're not so close together and legibility is a lot better. Going on the same with, or talking about some pre-writing skills and just like maybe some spacing that you can do. Something else that we thought about that you would benefit from is from these basic lines and shapes or pre-writing skills. And if you, I hope you all can see this. We have a vertical line, a horizontal line, a circle, a square, a cross, diagonals, and then a triangle. So this is very important because sometimes we may want to just go and skip all the way to writing having the child write his or her name, but it may be that they're not ready. It may be that they have to go and start with a vertical line first. So that's your first thing to remember, to start with a vertical line. And just the way to do this is for you to write the line first. So you draw this line first, and then have your child imitate that same line on a separate space. So if you do this one first, then the child would do this one here. Once this line is mastered or is very close to how you wrote it, then you would go to the next one, horizontal. Again, you would make the horizontal line first, and then the child would imitate and make the line across. And you would go on and so forth until the next shape, which would be, the last shape would be the triangle. So we hope that gives you a good idea. This next one will be covered by Becky.
Right. This part is talking about common starting points for practicing. If you have a child, groups of letters based on their starting point, it actually helps them learn how to form the letter, not just visually, but also kinesthetically in their hand. So for example, this is based on handwriting without tears method. You would practice the capital letters based on their starting point, and the frog jump capitals, that's what they're called, all start at the top here. So it would be F, E, starting at the same spot, D, P. As you can see, these letters are all the same starting points. They start right up here. The next group is what they call a starting corner capitals. That would be letters like H, K, and L. So they start in the corner, but then they come way over here. Start in the corner, but then have another L. All of them start here and could be grouped in there, but there are some differences. As you can see with the W, it's a diagonal. All right, the next group is called center starting capitals. Letters like C, O, Q. Those start over here. Can you see? C, O, Q. As you can see, they start way beyond this point. They start to the right. So it's good to have your students practice letters in groups based on their starting point. And the next slide is we're going to look at lowercase letters. Same thing, this is based on handwriting without tears, and this will be in your resources too. So you can get a lot of information online free to HISD parents. The magic C letters, these are all lowercase letters, the little letters. It's the same thing. They're based on starting points. And the magic C letter all start right of the midline. So C, O, A, D, G. As you can see, a C can turn into an O, an A, a D, a G. It all has the basic same starting points. Those are the magic C letters. The next one they called is the divers. So they go top to bottom. So that some of those would be P, R, N, and M. So as you can see, it says P, R, N, what's another one? Ah, M. As you can see, they all start here and go down, as opposed to starting up and going around. The next group is, I think that there's some odds and ends, but there's 3 lowercase letter groups: Magic C, Divers, and then those kind that just don't quite fit in any category. Most of the time, we don't like our kids writing bottom up, so we start the F here, F, L, top to bottom, I, top to bottom. So again, it's all based on starting points for your letters, and it helps your children learn how to form the letter in their hand as well as visually. So the next slide is, let's see, Erica,
Yes. So the next slide is multisensory strategies for handwriting. Using a variety of methods of writing for beginners. You can write letters on a tray with sand, or you can use store-bought salt on the surface. Also, you may already have sidewalk chalk. A lot of that's been going on lately. Also, if you have Play-Doh, you can form letters with Play-Doh. And the last one is air writing. I know that sounds a little strange, like air writing. What is that? So air writing is just something that you can give a child a visual of what the letter is. You can write it out, and then you just say, well, this is how you do air writing. You just put your finger up, and you can start with the letter A, and they can move down. And as you can see, I'm forming the letter A in the air. Same thing with the letter B. You can give them a visual, or you can write it down on paper, and you can form the letter B in the air. B. I'm not sure if you can see that one, so I'll try again. Let's do the letter C. So write the letter C on the paper. Here's the letter C. So that's what air writing looks like.
Thank you, Erica. And just so you know, we are recording this from our homes, so it may look a little different on your end. So if it looked a little backwards, it's actually the way that we usually write it from left to right, going this way. So I'm not sure how you saw it on your screen. So just remember that to write it the way that you know how to write it. So for example, like Erica said, if you're writing a C this way, again, I'm not sure how the screen looks like on your end, but we do know how to write. We do know how to spell or write our
Yes.
letters. So just make sure if it looks different on your end, it's just technology.
Right.
So in continuation, you can also use 3D letters. I'll show you a sample of 3D letters, letter towels. And you can buy these at your local store. That's the letter K. And you can see the sides, they're raised. Also, you can use shaving cream. You can write letters in shaving cream. You can trace raised letters, the ones that I just showed you. And also you can take the child's hand and write letters in the palm of their hand.
So thank you, Erica, for that. So typically, one thing to remember is that children start writing in a big format or a big form. What that means is they write huge, right? And I'm sure you've seen your child when he or she wrote, they're writing their letters pretty big, pretty large. However, as they gain more control of their muscles and just more motor memory, some of those fancy words, then their actual writing starts becoming smaller. So do remember that it's okay if your student is writing big. It may be that they're still in that developmental stage, but as they get older, they're going to a certain extent, you could say, grow out of it. They'll just get better at writing. One of the ways to assist your child to make the letters smaller, if they're ready for it, is to use small lined paper. And I believe that's something that we showed you a little bit earlier, but it's basically just, you guys can see that, if you can see that, it's just the lined paper is a lot smaller than your typical paper. For this one, a boundary box, I'll cover a boundary box for sentences. And what this will look like is, let me show you this one piece first, and then you can see it. So all I did was, with a Sharpie or a marker or a pen, anything that you have, just created a box that was like this. So it's basically a big rectangle. And now I have something that will give me a visual to know that when I start writing, not to go up or not to go down, but rather to go straight. So as you can see here, I wrote my name out. And that's one of the things that can help children to write straight If your child is having some difficulty with writing straight, if he or she is writing down or up, a boundary box may help him or her to stay within that line. I think Erica may have already shown this one, but she did the highlighting top and bottom. I'm not sure if you want to show it again, Erica.
Yes, I can show it again.
Sure.
This is the highlighted paper once again. And like Eric said before, if you don't have this paper, you can take a yellow highlighter and mark the top line and the bottom line of that paper. And it pretty much will do the same thing as this paper.
Is it okay if I jump in real fast with this paper? It's
Yes,
a
of
simple
course.
line paper from Handwriting Without Tears. If you can see, there's big spaces between the line, so the students don't get confused about what line they write on and about those letters that dip below the line or go above the line. It's just one of the Handwriting Without Tears strategies. You can make this yourself. It's not real hard. Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
So this slide here gives you an illustration of boundary boxes for letters. And as you can see, you can make this at home. The boxes are just to kind of help reduce the size. And this is a more advanced box. The boxes don't necessarily have to have a dot. The dots are actually the starting points to form the letters, but you can make these boxes without the dots, and it just will work on size, the letter size. And once your child becomes a little bit more advanced, you can actually use the dots. And like I said before, those are the starting points. So let me just kind of walk you through it. So above it, you see a visual model of a uppercase and lowercase letter. So you would have your child start at the dot, place their pencil at the dot, and then you would draw down from the dot, and then you would go back up and draw down again, and then across for the A. So what this does, it also works on letter size, it works on letter formation. And this is something that can be done at home. It doesn't have to be fancy. This is just an illustration to give you some idea of how to work on strategies for working on letter formation.
That was a really good idea, Erica. And I think I was trying to just follow or just do the A as you were talking. I
Yep.
may have missed it, but yep, just, you know, just make that line. Like, I'm not sure if you guys can see it here. If you guys follow the
I can
arrow.
see you. Yes.
Okay, great. So let's go on to the next one. So for this one, physical adaptations, one of the things that you can do also if your child is sometimes not securing the paper with his or her left hand, whichever hand they're writing with. If they're writing with their right, then it would be securing with their left. If they're not doing that just yet, then maybe use a tape or a clipboard, and that's going to secure the paper so it's not going everywhere. One thing to do is also to use a binder, and I believe Becky has a binder right there. Yes, thank you, Becky, that you guys can use. And then also a rubber band. This is an idea that Erica came up with, to use a rubber band on, yep, she's showing it right there. On the, put a rubber band on the pencil to give you an idea as to where to put your fingers.
And this is because sometimes you have your child and they may hold the pencil too high, and the rubber band will give them a visual where to place their fingers.
Great idea. I think, Becky, this was going to be your resources part.
Right. I just wanted to go over some of the resources that are available to handwriting, from Handwriting Without Tears to all HISD students. The Simply Lined paper can be downloaded from the website that I just showed you. That's the one that has big spaces between the lines, so that it's a visual strategy to help children with their placement. They're also offering, Handwriting Without Tears is offering free access to their website for 60 days during the COVID-19 school closures. So the website is, the website,
What would you like me to read for you, Becky?
Okay, well, that's the Facebook page at the bottom, but the website is also www.learningwithouttears.com. And you have contact people, both Deb Green and Gabby Pareto are both accessible if you have questions, if you have any issues with accessing the website. But on the website, there are multiple activities that you can do with your child. They can be self-direct. They can, once you get them on there, they can be self-directed and it's fun. They put it in fun format. And in addition to that, they have a Facebook page, Learning Without Tears, that also post webinars for parents to watch if they want to help support their children in their handwriting.
Great, that's good information. So this brings us to our conclusion or our end. Just remember that as you're practicing with your kids, make sure that you keep it short and sweet. That's going to be a lot easier for the child to learn. It's something called chunking. So just very small amounts of time. I would say even like 5-10 minutes. Would you guys agree about that? 5-10 minutes?
Absolutely.
Short. It's better to practice some of those things on a smaller scale so they can start getting the hang of it. But we hope that this gave you some good information. I'll put the credits here for a little bit. You can take a look at. Remember that on the site, on the Google site, you will also have access to this PowerPoint. And just thank you so much for listening to us today, watching, seeing some of the strategies that we presented to you. You can also comment on the YouTube video that right under the video, you scroll down, you can see that there's a comment section. Just tell us what you thought about the video, tell us what you like, tell us what we can improve on, and we hope that this gives you some good information. So we thank you from myself, Eric, from Becky, from Erica, from Christine, and then also from Norma. We thank you, and we hope to see you again next week. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.